It's the Winter Solstice Extravaganza, a festival unlike any other in the world. Join us for 5 days and 5 nights in the Caribbean island of Antigua. Experience our beaches, our historic island tour, splendid accommodations, and our plant-based meal. And of course, the sunrise and the sunset hike to the Stonehenge of the Caribbean, Green Castle Hill, Mount Anu, amongst the megaliths that align with the stars. Reserve your spot today and join us from Wednesday the 18th to Sunday the 22nd of December 2024 for the Winter Solstice Extravaganza. Visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. From the dawn of humanity, the universe has provided for man and woman a plant of renown, the tree of life, the healing of the nation, Cannabis sativa. From Ganja pollen found in the tomb of Ramesses II, to hemp fiber in the temple of Akhenaten, Confucius' canon of rites, the Rig Veda, and the writings of Zoroaster label cannabis as a sacred plant. Marijuana, Mafaizan, in the Orient, it is the spiritual plant of Rastafari. The sacred mint, our sacrament.
While churches rose to the sky in Europe, in 12th century Africa, they were being carved out of the ground. These Christian pilgrims in Ethiopia are on their way to worship at one of them. In these highlands, in the 12th century, Lalibela, a new king from a new dynasty, built a new holy capital. Today, Lalibela's legacy lives on in the physical splendor of the churches and the traditions of their guardian priests.
My blessed people and congregation, churches with no mud, no wood, and no cement. You cannot find anything like this in the rest of the world. You are all blessed because you are here. This place was built by God.
Every year on St. George's Day, pilgrims gather to celebrate a faith that has endured here for 16 centuries. Christians claimed that God brought the Ark of the Covenant and the tablets of the Ten Commandments to their land. On holy days today, priests carry on their heads replicas of the tablets, wrapped in gilded cloth. The people of Ethiopia have been carving churches out of mountains for more than 1,000 years. But the 11 churches of Lalibela symbolize their achievement to the outside world. Become a legend, his story told by monks even today.
There was a city called Roha, where lived a man who belonged to one of the most noble of families, one of the richest in gold, silver, garments, precious stones, servants and maids. He had a child who became the mysteriously named Lalibela.
In the legend, the king's greatness was recognized at birth. A swarm of bees descended on his cot as if around honey.
His mother named him Lalibela, which means the bee has recognized him as king. But these were not bodily bees, but angels who took bee form in order to announce his reign.
God sent one of his angels to bring Lalibela to heaven, to show him the most holy of churches. Lalibela, the story goes, ordered tools to be made to carve temples like those he'd seen in heaven. His craftsmen turned the wild mountainside into a new Jerusalem.
Definitely say blessed love to each and every one. Give thanks for your presence with us. Give thanks to the life giver and the keeper of life, Adamawe Haile Selassie the First. Definitely welcome you to another episode of The Tiger's Nest. Definitely talking about PriestIsaacInstitute.com radio and the international flavor, the universal spice. Once again, give thanks for your presence with us. It is a joy. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Let me repeat. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 p.m. sharp. Right here on Radio Anu, we take it to another level. We bring you once again what is known as the Tiger's Nest, a radio program. And this evening, no different. We're just going to carry it to another dimension, another level, another heights, if you want to call it that. Beautiful. We are going to be tapping into the cannabis. And yeah, I'm asking the question, does God smoke marijuana? Does God partake of the cannabis? Now, this is a very serious question. This is not a joke. Now, there are different levels to this. On a very simple level, Honorable King Emmanuel Charles Edwards, everyone who sat with the Father knows that the Father is the master when it comes to blazing the chalice. Come on, you know what I'm saying is the truth. And we're talking about the divine himself in our presence. The Black Christ in flesh in our presence. Whether you believe in Christ or however you want to interpret it, that's the man there. And he blazed the cannabis with us in his chalice. I'm talking about Bongo Eddie, for clarity, Prince Emmanuel Charles Edwards. So the program, we can seal it off here. The question is answered. If God burned marijuana, if God smoked herb. Yeah, but of course, we're going to take it to another dimension. When you say God, a lot of people, they think of the biblical perspective. So we're going to go in there as well to see if we can find cannabis anywhere in the Bible. And let me be clear. We would have done several programs, for example, the Holy Grail. You know, the Holy Grail is one of my more favorite subjects, maybe the most favorite of the subjects, the Holy Grail. When you take the time to show the world that the chalice, are you listening to me? The chalice, which is the Holy Grail, the chalice, which is the cup that Christ would have used at the Last Supper, that chalice itself, that is the Holy Grail that people talk about. And that chalice is not the cup that you see them use in the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Church and whichever else church that they use it in. The chalice is the chalice that we know as Rastafari. The coconut or the calabash with the bamboo shank and the clay kochi, the chalice, the chalwa, the telephone. Yeah, so that is the chalice. And of course, we have proven that. And I would invite anyone to visit our YouTube channel and look up Holy Grail. I mean, when we do that subject, we're talking about 2 to 3 hours long. For those of you who love those long videos, 2 to 3 hours long to explain in depth and in detail the Holy Grail, which is the chalice. Everyone agrees with that, but which chalice? Melchizedek, Melchizedek has the chalice there in the Carthage Cathedral. Yeah, created by what's his name? Charles the Ball, I think it was him, who created that sculpture of Melchizedek at that world famous cathedral. And Melchizedek is said to have within his hand, no, it's not the real Melchizedek, it's some European rendition of the Melchizedek character, but he has in his hand a cup, and inside of the cup is a stone. And the mystery is, what is this stone inside of Melchizedek's cup? Remember, inside of the cup, which is the kutchi of the chalice, you have the stone, which is called the griti. I mean, family, I will invite you to visit the Holy Grail. It's right there on YouTube. I think we did it at least 3 times. You have 3 different versions of that presentation, and each one has a different spice. If you are serious, that's why we don't smoke spliff. We not wrapping up nothing in no paper. We don't have no paper receptors in our brains. We don't have no corn shocks or fig leaf receptors in our brain. We don't have trumpet leaf receptors in our brain. We have THC receptors in our brain. When you put it in the chalice, you don't have to wrap up anything, you know. But anyway, because obviously if God is smoking ganja, God is smoking a chalice. Just think about it. But family, as I said, that is just one level. And as you know, we are preparing the documentary, which will be out in December, entitled The Sacred Mint, Our Sacrament. Look forward to that, family. Prepare yourself for that documentary. That will be featured in the next episode of the magazine Kidemi, which will be coming out on the 21st day of December. Okay, so does God smoke ganja? What do you think? Before we go there, just to highlight, you see, one of the importance of this subject area is understanding the history of cannabis, where it rests in history, you know, especially when it comes to the younger generations and those who are stepping into the realms to partake of the holy tree of life. They need to have knowledge of it, even though many of us didn't have no knowledge of it when we held on to it, you understand? But because we had a certain discipline, it brought us to the knowledge of it. But everyone is not the same, and that's just reality. Everyone is not the same. You should know how to meditate. I mean, literally know how to yoga, how to deep breathe, how to sit still, how to be quiet, how to read a book for 5 hours and don't jump out. You should know all of this. You should have all of these skills before you ever puff a smoke of ganja. You understand? Remember, the cannabis almost would arrest you. Well, I mean, if it's proper herb, high grade, arrest you and put you in that trance to meditate. But because a lot of people do not comprehend this, they even get afraid when the herb too high. That's why you want to eat, you want to sleep, you want to get on your cellular phone and talk to someone. You need to listen this and watch this and all sorts of things, because the God inside of you is coming out. Yeah, but of course, historically, we already understand the realms of the cannabis. It has been found in these Kurgan mounds and the mounds of emperors in China. We're talking about 2000 BC, 3000 BC, people digging up pots filled with burnt ganja, pounds of ganja. Of course, resin was found in the temple of Ramesses II. Even Akhenaten, pollen was found in the temple of Ramesses II as well. Cannabis pollen is found on the mummy of Ramesses II, who passed in the year 1213 BCE. So you could understand that the reality is that cannabis is not something to be afraid of. We already know what they did with reefer madness. For those who do not know about reefer madness, that might be good. But anyway, reefer madness was that mad documentary that they created to turn your mind away from the reality of cannabis, the tree of life, the holy herb. When you can see the tree of life above the head of the Liberian Shishat, who is the wife of Tahuti, And of course, again, you see the ancient hieroglyphs, the Meduneter, highlighting the cannabis and the incense of which was created by the cannabis. Ramesses II, also in the tomb of Akhenaten, they never found Akhenaten's body in the tomb, but they found resin of ganja in the very same tomb, you know. So you could understand history again. For those who try to dodge Africa, they go straight to China. But I mean, it's not okay. But the reality is China also has an ancient history when it comes to the cannabis, because remember, scientists has proven that it wasn't China and India who began the cultivation of cannabis. It's Africa. For years, for decades, they've been trying to feed us that. In fact, we have the evidence now that the so-called slaves that came to the West in South America were the ones that brought that whole science of consuming the cannabis and even brought cannabis to the West, even before the Indians came as indentured servants. And in fact, we're going to get into some of that history in a moment. Please tiger with me. Good. Some people say, bear with me. You tiger with me. Shen Nong. You know of Shen Nong. We did a documentary episode of the Tiger's Nest about 3 months ago, speaking of the history of cannabis. That also is on the YouTube. You should check that out. We highlight some of the individuals who are considered to be the forerunners when it comes to the use of cannabis. Shen Nong, which is one of the sacred divine emperors. And these sacred divine emperors himself and Shushai and these ones would have brought the cannabis around them in their reign. In fact, Shen Nong, the divine father, would have cannabis as the top herb in his catalog of herb when it comes to healing, you know, medicinal herb. Remember, the herb was used to prevent many things like gout and absent-mindedness. Imagine that. Cannabis is used to prevent absent-mindedness and to improve your memory. Yeah, and they teach you the opposite today. Remember, the cannabis was referred to as ma or mafaizan, you know, and has been used in medicine and used as a anesthesia and all of these different things. And then, of course, the Scythians. Those of you who study the history of the Scythians, you know they are the ones that really, according to the history that we have been taught, revolutionized the use of this stuff. You know, they would have hot stones inside of a teepee type of tent, and they would just throw the cannabis on the hot stones and stick their head inside of the tent and inhale the vapor and the smoke of the cannabis. It works that way as well. You can comprehend. For those of you who have ever had a stuffy nose or blocked nasal passage, and your mother would take the menthol or the eucalyptus oil or the peppermint oil or even a Vicks rub and boil the water and throw the essential oil in the water and put your head over the water and cover it with a towel, and that would clear up the sinus and clear up the passage. I mean, I still do that up to today with anyone around me that needs that assistance. But they would do the same thing using the cannabis, not with boiling water, but with hot coals. And the Scythians would throw the cannabis on the hot coals and stick their head in the tent. And inhale, you know. So in a few moments, I'm going to make you hear from an individual that has been studying the whole aspect of the spiritual use of cannabis for some time, and he will be speaking a bit of Shiva, who's considered to be the oldest worshipped god. How does that sound to you? So in other words, all the gods that people worship, it seems as if people have been worshiping Shiva longer than any other god. And Shiva comes with two other gods, Brahma, who is a bigger god than him, and his partner there, his brethren Vishnu. But Shiva seems to be the longest worshipped god, according to some historians and theologians. But Shiva now is known to, they say cannabis was made from the skin of Shiva. Some say the flesh of Shiva. When you take in cannabis, you're taking in Shiva. when you take it in its right form and fashion, you become Shiva. Shiva is known for drinking the bang lassi, which of course is made with the cannabis, and they also have the mango lassi, which is the same drink made from mango and not cannabis lassi. Bang lassi, you can imagine that, because bang, you know, some say it's not related to bong. I differ with that belief there, because the original bong is the people from Bong in Liberia that smoke the bong, the chalice. But anyway, Shiva would be licking down the bang lassi, and of course that is said to be a portion created using the very same cannabis. Now, so it's very deep, eh? And as I said, now, this is just a bit of the historical aspect of it. But the question I am asking here, does God smoke cannabis? I already answered that, you know. And of course, that may not suffice everyone. So, oh, well, you're a Rasta man, but let's get something a bit more, deeper. And as I said, remember that in the upcoming edition of Kidemi, which is our magazine, for those who do not know of our brand new magazine, let me take the moment to introduce you. Those who are well familiar with it, please tiger with me. You know, for sure, we have a brand new online magazine, fully digital, entitled Kidemi. We're taking a look at it. Of course, it's quite comfortable to read. All you got to do, for those who are watching, is to press the link in the description, and it will carry you straight to the magazine, Kidemi. And within the pages of Kidemi, of course, you will find a lot of beautiful articles, a lot of beautiful features, of course, some wonderful ads that will even entertain you. And remember, we have the documentary, Epidemic. The documentary Epidemic is a part of this edition of Kidemi. Now, this is why I actually came into the magazine Kidemi, to highlight to you that the documentary, The Sacred Mint, are you listening to me? The documentary, The Sacred Mint, will be the feature documentary in the December edition of Kidemi. And for some time, the only place that you will be able to see the Sacred Mint is to come into the magazine Kidemi, not this one, but the one that we will be releasing to you in December for the winter solstice, specifically December the 21st. Now, let me just remind everyone, since we are here, remember, you can have a spot in the December edition of the magazine Kidemi. In other words, you can advertise with us, you know, your business. I mean, I would expect that all of these people listening to me are business people. If you're not, I mean, wow, you got to have something going on. So whether you have apartments for rent, whether you have cars for rent, even if you're trying to sell your house, whatever the case is, even if you have, what do you call it, electrical supplies, you do fencing, you do roofing, whatever business that you have, we can advertise it for you in the magazine Kidemi in the upcoming edition, which will be the 21st day of December. I want you to be clear here, family. This is an opportunity. And right now, we have over 20,000 subscribers. And every day, the number is rising. So by the time we hit December, we will be touching 100,000 subscribers, hundreds of thousands of readers, that's for sure, to the magazine Kidemi. So if you have a message, I'm not talking about just in your neighborhood, not just around the corner, internationally, Japan, wherever the people are, they're reading the magazine Kidemi. Now, today is the last day for you to get the 50% off offer that we've been telling you about. Now, of course, you know, you have until October the 15th. So you can mark this date down. You have until October the 15th. That is when we're going to seal taking requests from individuals who want to advertise with us. So you have until October the 15th to do that. But but as I said, we had a special offer that came to an end today. Well, it's going to come to an end at midnight tonight officially. So that's really in the next few hours. So you still have a chance. You can still email us now and let us know that, hey, I would like to be a part of the program. I would like to advertise with the magazine Kidemi for December, and I would like to get the 50% offer. Just let us know. Even if you're a day or two late, we would work something out. Maybe you got the message, you know, a tad bit behind time. So it's no problem, because this is an opportunity you will love. Remember, you can get a full page. You can get a spreadsheet. Remember, those of you who really have a business, your link will be on your ad. This is innovative. When they press the link, it takes them to your ad. It takes them to your, pardon me, it takes them to your website. It takes them to your Facebook page. And remember, you can get a spot in the magazine for as little as $100, which is $50 if you get the 50% off. Imagine that, as little as $100. Of course, you have spots for $250. The full page would be $1,500, and you can get a spreadsheet for $3,000. You understand? But you have as little as $100, and you can go up. So there's something there for everyone who really want to, you know, step up the game when it comes to their business. I would encourage you to advertise with Kidemi. But as I was saying now, the documentary entitled The Sacred Myth, that will be the main documentary in the next upcoming edition of Kidemi, and you'll be able to see it here and here alone. In the same way you come here to see a pedimec, you will come right here to see the documentary I'm talking about, The Sacred Myth. Very good, beautiful. So family, give thanks for your presence. Now, what I want to highlight for you here, this is very important, I'm going to share with you just a touch of a lecture that was given by Chris Bennett. And Chris Bennett, he's an author of several books directly dealing with cannabis and the sacredness of cannabis, etc. And I want you to somewhat take in, let's say, some of the information that he will be giving us on the cannabis, and then I myself, I'm going to pull a few scriptures for us so we can see without a doubt that God does partake of the ganja. Now, let's begin here. This is Chris Bennett, and he's given a lecture on the hidden history of cannabis. And he's going to begin speaking of the word itself, at least not begin, but I'm going to begin where he was speaking about the word itself, cannabis, and its connection to the scripture. Quite interesting.
A very popular theory, something that a lot of people know through my work as well, that there's this idea that there's this Hebrew word, cannabosum, that actually makes reference to cannabis, that was mistranslated as calamus when they translated the ancient Hebrew text into Greek and then Latin, became calamus. And this goes back to a Polish etymologist and anthropologist known as Sula Bennett, who began writing about this in 1936 and wrote about it for a number of decades afterwards. And she says this Hebrew term, cannabosum, as I said, was mistranslated, but by tracking the modern term cannabis back through history in the Hebrew language, where the Mishnah period was known as cannabos, as well as comparing it to the similar Assyrian term, cannabu, you can show that this was a reference to cannabis. Also the similar ways that they used it. Now it's interesting because Moses first meets the angel of the Lord in the flames of fire from within a burning bush, which is kind of ironic considering all this. And this is a page from the Living Torah by Rabbi Ari Kaplan, and he's talking.
Now basically highlighting his understanding there. That's the main thing I really wanted to catch. The Bassa. So he's saying, and he mentions this throughout his presentation, that the ka is one of the oldest root words. The ka, the cannabis, the cannabasum, the calamus. So he's saying that when you see kana within the Bible, it is specifically speaking of the cannabis. All right. Now he's going to speak quickly on some of the different traditions, Zoroaster and Islam, Buddhism. I'm going to indulge in some of that, skip over a few points, and then I'm going to return with some key scripture, and we're going to prove that God burned the ganja. Yeah.
Back to life. Certain encounters along the way may put the power of endurance of the traveler to the test. So they would take so much cannabis extract prepared into wine.
And before we talk about the cannabis, the water turned into wine at Cana. Now, because that's what the chalice is, and the water turns to the wine. The water turns to the blood of the plant. Remember that, because the wine is symbolic of blood, you know that? All right, good. Yeah, you should check the documentaries we did, the Holy Grail, eh? That's what I'm saying here. I'm not going to try to go through that right now. But I just want to highlight, remember, Chris Bennett is giving a PowerPoint presentation here. So you'll hear him mention from time to time, look on the slide, or you can see this and that here and there. But that's a PowerPoint presentation that he is giving. So with all respect to that. All right, let's continue.
We literally knock them out for a couple of days. On the way, may put the power of endurance of the traveler to the test. So they would take so much cannabis extract prepared into wine that it would literally knock them out for a couple of days. And after this, they'd wake up and they'd say, oh, well, I had this vision, you know what I mean? And that's like a common theme in the ancient world, is the use of psychoactive substances, and people interpret that as some sort of actual experience, much like Dreamtime with the Australian Aborigines, where they say that that's a reality, not just a dream, not just something that's taking place in your head. When the people had visions on psychoactive substances in the ancient world, much like people in South America and Africa still do today, they interpreted those as actual spiritual experiences, where the soul left the body and went to another place and experienced it. They didn't have a concept of drugs affecting the brain receptors and things like that.
No, that's very important, eh? He's talking of anciency. This concept of drugs and something and you're too high and them foolishness. No, they considered this like a dream then, in the same way that those who consider dreams like a next level of experience, yeah, to be read then in that state where you are in a deep meditation. It's as if you've gone into a totally different zone. So when we say that, that's really what it is. You've zoned out and zoned into some other place. And that's how the ancients would look at this, because they understood that this is something sacred that we are dealing with here.
Of the traveler to the test. So they would take so much cannabis extract prepared into wine that it would literally knock them out for a couple of days. And after this, they'd wake up and they'd say, oh, well, I had this vision, you know what I mean? And that's like a common theme in the ancient world, is the use of psychoactive substances, and people interpret that as some sort of actual experience, much like Dreamtime with the Australian Aborigines, where they say that that's a reality, not just a dream, not just something that's taking place in your head. When the people had visions on psychoactive substances in the ancient world, much like people in South America and Africa still do today, they interpreted those as actual spiritual experiences, where the soul left the body and went to another place and experienced it. They didn't have a concept of drugs affecting the brain receptors and things like that. And this is Zoroaster turning on his first devotee, King Vishtaspa, who was a major figure in the acceptance of Zoroastrianism as the main religion of Persia, and he did so after partaking of cannabis. And this is a vision of Ardu Viraf, a Zoroastrian hero who was said to have drank the cannabis and then gone on to see both heaven and hell. And this later filtered into Judaism and Christianity. And as Giraldo Noli recorded in Encyclopedia Iranica, bong was an ingredient of the illuminating drink that allowed Vishtaspa to see the great mystery. The bong of Vishtaspa was mixed with wine and was an integral part of the ecstatic practice aimed at opening the eye of the soul. And from the Zoroastrian religion, it filtered into the Indian religion as well. And Buddha was said to have partaken of 1 hemp seed a day for the period while he was under the Bodhi tree in meditation. And after that, announced his revelations. And here he is, I guess, on the 1 hemp seed a day diet. And this is Mahakala, who's a Tibetan Buddhist version of Shiva. The use of hemp was spread into India via the Vedas, and descriptions of the 10th mandala of the Rig Veda described the Soma as green and purple, and branches of Soma were beaten with a rock, are comparable to later preparations of Ban with a mortar and pestle. The view that Soma was cannabis has been held by a variety of Indian authors, most prominently by Chandra Chakrabarti, who made this association clear in a number of different books. Soma was made with the flowering tops and resins of cannabis sativa, which is the aphrodisiac and stimulant and a nourishing food. Of all the plants, Soma is the king. It is safe to conclude that Soma is cannabis. And Joseph Chandra Ray noted in the Soma plant in 1939, the effects of Soma are exactly the same as those of bong. Soma used to be drunk between eating of food. It is nourishing when taken with milk and food. It is exhilarating. It excites and is intoxicating. It stimulates the voice and impels the flow of words. It awakens eager thought. It excites poetic imagination. It induces sleep and desire for women. It bestows fertility. It cures diseases and was believed to prolong life. None but the strong can tolerate it. It was drunk before military engagement and after victory, for which Indra's favor was prayed for. It was very difficult to acquire and was highly taxed because the Soma came into India from another region. Cannabis isn't indigenous to India. It was actually imported originally. And because of these stringent taxes, it was very...
You heard what he said. Cannabis wasn't indigenous to India. It was imported.
It came into India from another region. Cannabis isn't indigenous to India. It was actually imported originally. And because of these stringent taxes...
All the people that like to give the Rasta thing, you know what I mean, to the Indians, all that they say. Well, you know, the Indians brought cannabis to the Rasta because cannabis come from India. Well, it didn't come from India. I mean, family, we went through this before, you know. We have been brain scrubbed. So we talk any old little foolishness, eh? We've been brain scrubbed. I'm showing you hieroglyphs on the wall. Hieroglyphs on the wall before, way before India was the India you know today. And that is highlighting the ganja leaf above the head of Shisha. Yeah.
It was very, very expensive, and it eventually became slightly prohibitive because of those taxes.
Yeah,
now, it's important to remember that Buddha, who I mentioned before, his use was not psychoactive. It was just the hemp seed. It's thought that Buddha was a reformer of the Vedic religion, and things like alcohol, meat eating, and the use of soma were all prohibited under Buddhism. And in the 3rd century, the Indian text Lalita Vistra refers to Buddha's use of cannabis. The prince to the Gaya mountains reflected, considering that he is intended to penetrate the secret influences which actuate the conduct of men, he might after 6 years be in a position to save them. Thus he addressed himself to the practice of austerities, each day eating 1 grain of hemp, 1 grain of rice, by this means reducing himself to a condition of overcoming all pleasures. Afterwards, perceiving that this was not the true way, he pursued the contrary method, using indulgences, bathing, perfuming himself, and so on, and by these means he subdued sorrow. And then, even though it seems to have disappeared in early Buddhism, in later Tibetan Buddhism and stuff, it came back. And in their well-researched essay, Psychoactive Plants in Tantric Buddhism, Cannabis and Datura Use in Indo-Tibetan Esoteric Buddhism, researchers Parker and Lux identify references to cannabis, datura, and other psychoactive plants in medieval Buddhist tantric texts, such as the Mahakala Tantra, that's Mahakala there, where the plants are employed to attain health, wealth, wisdom, and supernatural powers. such as seeing underground and flying. Well, those are pretty powerful powers. And so cannabis didn't completely disappear in the Indian tradition either. And so there's a story, the churning of the ocean of milk. And the churning of the ocean of milk is a very important myth in Hinduism, and there's a festival based around it called the Kumbh Mela.
Yes, yes. And of course, you know, that's deeper and we can go deeper and deeper, but there'll be more time for that. And I mean, in the Indian tradition, just the Ganges River itself is Ganja, Maganja. And then you have Kalima, you know, Kali, which is said to be the sister with all the skulls, you know. All the Kali, that's where you get the term Kali, even California, the Kali herb, the Ganja, you know. So yes, you have a lot of terms from that part of the world, you know, India, where it's directly connected to the marijuana, the mafaizan, the ma, you understand, and you can see that it's connected to a certain aspect of spirituality. But what the brother mentioned there a moment ago, and we'll swing into this now, he spoke about Moses speaking to God for the first time in the burning bush. Now, you know, there's a scripture there in Samuel, and it's also seen in the book of Psalms, the 18th Psalms, where it clearly says that God arose and smoke, hear this now, man, smoke arose out of his nostrils. Now, that is obvious if it's talking about God, and smoke is coming out of his nostrils. Now, for smoke to come out of his nostrils, it would have had to enter inside of the anatomy of whoever to bring it back out through his nostrils. Interestingly, those who find themselves in a corner when you pull these scriptures, they like to say, oh, that is just symbolic. Is that so? Now remember, these are people who never saw anything in the Bible to be symbolic. Everything was as literal gets. So whatever it is, even if it's Jonah swallowed by the whale or the fish, as literal gets. Whoever busts the sea wide open and anything that is said, we have no room for allegory. Even though the same book speaks of allegory, but we don't care about that because we are believers. Okay, fair enough. Well, it says that God had smoke coming out of his nostrils. No, brother, that's symbolic. That's symbolic of his anger. Okay, so that is symbolic. So we choose what we want to be symbolic, eh? Okay, fair enough. Okay. So the same Moses spoke to God, and a tree was alit, burning, not going anywhere. In fact, hear this. Let me show you how far religion goes. In some aspects of Christianity, there are people that will carry you to the place where not only Moses spoke to God in the burning bush, but the bush is still there. You never see it on TV? It's like a vine growing on the side of a kind of structure there. And that is said to be the very same tree that Moses spoke to God through when he spoke to God, or the angel of the Lord, which is really who it was according to the Bible, in the burning bush. And the bush did not consume. But I'm going to be straight here. Whether it consume or not, to me, it's not even about being consumed. It's the fact that God spoke to his chief representative in the burning bush. Now, those of you who burn the bush, I mean, I don't have to try to convince you of nothing here. You would only get a problem. Listen to me good. You would only get problems from individuals who do not or have not burnt the bush. Or it has to be someone who is so dogmatic that they have become a Christian. And to them, Christianity has nothing to do with burning the bush, so they suppress their knowledge and act as if they don't know. But those who have burnt the bush know for a fact that if you really want to talk to the Lord, if you want to have a conversation with the Most High, yeah, if you want to relate to the God within you, the best avenue that you have is the burning bush. I don't care how long you sit down on the mountaintop and breathe. From the time you light that stuff, you gone the burning bush. The schoolmaster is here. No regular teacher now. The principal is here. So, without a doubt, it's only because of reefer madness you want to pretend as if you don't know what I'm talking about. But the burning bush is where you speak to the Most High. And that is undeniable. Now, I want to read a scripture for you here. Let us take a look at the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 6. And it says here, in the year that King Uzziah died, I, Isaiah, saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Above it stood the seraphims. These are angels. Each one had 6 wings, when it figured out. With twain he covered his face. With twain he covered his feet. And with twain he did fly. So 2 wings in his face, 2 wings covering his feet, and flying with 2 wings. So you understand the realms we're in here. And one cried unto another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. What they're burning up there, I don't know. They said, they call the fire department. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. It's obvious that I love what I do. I'm telling you. Then said I, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips. This is Isaiah. Imagine that. And I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. Now you come. For mine eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. So an angel had the tongs, and he grabbed the coal off of the altar, and he came unto Isaiah, who was just saying that he has dirty lips. Verse 7 continues, and he laid it upon my mouth. Ow! Well, he didn't say that, I mean, coal from off of the altar. And he laid it upon my mouth. Is that symbolic? I hope so. Now, it is symbolic, but it doesn't mean something wasn't laid on his mouth. But in symbolic tone, and he laid it on my mouth and said, lo, this has touched thy lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. Now, before we even go any further, ones are already on defense. Oh, what you're trying to say? God gave him a joint? Ones are already trying to, push back. No, hold on. I never said God gave him any joint. I'm sure God didn't give him no joint. What are you talking about? You read it like me. A coal was placed on his lips. Oh, you're lucky. I'm not lucky. Lucky is the devil. Lucifer is short for lucky. But I'm very fortunate. Family, if you're just coming in, I have been inviting ones throughout this program to go and look at a video I would have done some time back. In fact, I would have done it several times, each time a little bit different than the previous. Holy Grail. Just go to my YouTube channel and type Holy Grail. Whatever comes up, watch it. Even if it's, 3 hours and 42, please take your time. Go fall asleep and watch it, wake up and play it again. And don't worry, we'll be doing it again sometime. And Sacred Mint, although it's not going to be 3 hours long, 2 hours, hardly an hour for sure. But in documentary, somewhat movies fashion, we will put together that information for you again. Yeah. But we're dealing with the house of the Lord. His house is filled with smoke. I just explained to you another time when he was checked and his house was filled with smoke. Smoke was coming out of his nostrils. We would have proven in the Holy Grail that the whole concept of killing animals and throwing them on the altar was not what God was talking about when he gave the law. We proved that. Jeremiah clearly said that. Who is it that taught you to do this? I never, Jeremiah's word, I never, well, not even Jeremiah's word, Jeremiah's book, but the word of the Lord. I never spoke unto your forefathers when I took them out of the land of Egypt concerning bullocks and sheep and these burnt offerings and sacrifices. It's right there in the book of Jeremiah. He said never tell them to kill sheep and bullocks, which I agree. That's why when you read all of the Gospels of the Christ as a child, he's wondering, why are you killing these animals? Why is he so shocked if that's not the law of Moses? Those of you who are saying, oh, that's symbolic, now you need to put on your symbolic light. Because you are correct, there's a lot of symbolism in the book. We take a lot of the symbolism and turn it into literalism and miss the whole story and miss the true literal aspect of what the symbol is talking about. If you didn't get it, just rewind it and listen to that part again. But the point is, the chalice, the Holy Grail, the censer, the calamus, the cannabisum, the ganja, the tree of life, the tree of renown, the healing of the nation. It's all over the scriptures. The anointing oil. I know you want to put us on defense like we're some kind of junkie or crackhead. And well, cannabis is good. It's good, but nobody should smoke. Give me a break. Give me a break. 10 years ago, 10 years ago, it wasn't good for you. You just learn it good now, and all of a sudden, you're an expert more than the experts. So when the angel came and put the coal on the mouth of Isaiah, his chalice passing there. Enough Isaiah going King Emmanuel Palace, and the house was filled with smoke. You hear me? Enough Isaiah sit down and say, wow, come on, you've heard them. You've heard them. I would have had some of them as guests on my own program. Enough Isaiah go to Bubble Hill and sit down in King Emmanuel Palace and see angels passing Chalice and say, wow, how I get here? Wow, Jarabi, where you put me into, brother? My lord, I have to go home. Sit down and cool, man. Yeah. And angels bring the chalice to him. The same cup that Jah himself sup in. Isaiah take a draw. And the Lord say, who will go? And Isaiah say, send me, Lord, send me. That's what everybody say when they go to the house of the Lord and the house filled with smoke. And they get the coals placed on their lips by the cherubim and the seraphim. Let's be real, everybody can relate to that. So let me read something else for you here with understanding. Now, in the book of Ezra, second Ezra now, is the same Ezra from the Bible, but you got to go into the Apocrypha to find this. Now, everyone is not into the Apocrypha thing, but that's all right. We're not into what everyone is into. We're just into the truth. Now, for those who do not know, by the way, the Apocrypha is like a collection of some of the books that you do not find in the regular canon. For one reason or the other, they've been divorced from them, but I mean, they belong together. All right. Now, this is second Ezra. This is the 14th chapter, and I will be reading from the 37th verse. And it's entitled here, The Restoration of the Scriptures. Listen to me, good family. 37th verse. So I took the 5 men as he had commanded me, and we proceeded to the field and remained there. On the next day, a voice called me, saying, Ezra, open your mouth and drink what I give to you. So I opened my mouth, and a cup was offered to me. It was full of something like water, but the color was like fire. And, well, no and is there. I took it and drank. And when I had drunk it, my heart poured forth understanding, and wisdom increased in my breast. For my spirit retained its memory, and my mouth was open and was no longer closed. Now, again, this is not just a report that we are listening to. We can testify of this. For those who want to become, how should I put it, precise. Oh, well, he gave him something to drink. They weren't smoking nothing. Well, no, this is where your symbolism's supposed to kick in now. Because he clearly gave him a cup. Yeah. And he asked him to open his mouth. And it was filled with something like water. Now, it's just interesting that he used the term like. But its color was like fire, because you must keep in mind that one of the main aspects of the concept of the Holy Grail is that you need the fire, the bread, and the water together. The bread represents the fire because it is the bread that you put on fire, the lamb that you roast on the altar. The lamb, the bread that Christ broke, represents the lamb that the Old Testament speaks of being put on the fire. So the bread plus the lamb is the lamb's bread. The lamb's bread put together is the sacrifice. And the Christ himself is the lamb. The Christ himself is the bread. The Christ himself is the lamb's bread that was sacrificed for the sins of humanity. So that is why when you take the hemp or the chalice or the cannabis, I should say, and you put it on the altar, and you put it specifically in the kachi. Remember, the kachi is the cup, you know. And this is why, again, at the Last Supper, that's when Christ was with his disciples. He broke the bread and he had the wine. And he broke the bread and gave it to them and said that this is my body given for you and the fullness. And then he gave them the wine to drink and said, this represents my blood. Now, of course, we ain't going to turn this into a vampire story, but you must comprehend again, even when it comes to that green plant, that's why the god is seeing green. That's why Osiris is seeing green. That's why Osiris was cut into several pieces to be sacrificed. You got to cut up the green, you know, several pieces to be sacrificed, and he was thrown in the river. It's deep. It's deep, deep vibes. So that means now, that is why when you partake of the tree of life is on the altar. The tree of life literally represents the lamb that has been slaughtered. And when you put fire to it and the smoke runs under the kachi and blasts through the water and comes out of the shank, remember the water itself will eventually turn green. Now, the green is the chlorophyll. The green is the blood of the plant. So the water literally turns to blood, you know. That is why at the first miracle, which was in Cana, remember the marriage at Cana? Remember, Cana is the cannabis from what Chris was telling us. So at the marriage of Cana, which was his first miracle, Christ turned the water into wine, you know, which is symbolic of even his birth. That's why water becomes blood. Every one of us who are red people, red man, Adam, the red man, a human being, we have blood within our system, which is symbolic of the seawater of the planet Earth. That's why it's 70 to 80% water within you and 70 to 80% water, on the planet now. Of course, to those who, I must bring this in, to those who, because they have people that are listening that are not really listening. They have people that come to class, but they don't want to learn. They come to for all sorts of reasons. So everything that is being said there may sound like, man, he's jumping all over the place. Yes, we are. We are jumping all over the place because we're skillful like that. But all over the place that we're jumping is connected to one place. And this is why we give thanks for those who take their time to study all that we produce. Because, yeah, we went from one age to another age and one epoch to another epoch in the mind just a moment ago, to clearly show you with understanding that we are talking about the chalice. We're talking about the cannabis with the water. They go together. The bread and the wine, they go together. That's why we do not partake of the cannabis without the wine. That's why a lot of people, when they wrap up their little joint and they're spliffy, they have to go and buy a drink of something. And you'd see them take a sip of the spliff, and then they take a sip of the bottle, because instinctively they know that they go together. That's why sometimes they throw a little water on the ground for the fallen soldier. Instinctively, they understand that the chalice brings forth libation. When we done burn the chalice and we throw the water to the earth, we give thanks to Rastafari, we give thanks to the ancient spirit, and we give thanks to the ancestors. You understand? That's their blood going to the earth there. The blood of the plant, the chlorophyll, which is the blood of the plant. So it doesn't turn red, it turns green. This is deep, with understanding. Remember the makeup of chlorophyll and the makeup of the makeup of the blood is exactly the same. The only difference is that our blood has the iron and the chlorophyll has magnesium. That's all. Just that alone, you change it and green to red. So that's to show how we represent the plant as well. Look at our lungs, our roots, everything, the whole system that's within us. It's like the veins and the arteries. Yeah, it's like the flora world. That's deep. So everything is deep science, you know, what they would call occult science. I know some of us, we don't want to hear them words. We want to run and jump under the table and all kind of thing. Get out of it, man. And obio and voodoo. Oh, we don't want to hear that. Get out of it. Grow up now. This is a different time of knowledge, time of information, time of inspiration, you know. So definitely the Most High partake of the chalice, the Most High in flesh. Not no spooky Most High. Not just the Most High in the book, the real Black Christ in flesh that come and sit with us, pull out the chalice and say, my Lord, bring the coal, let me bless this one and light it up. Eh? Yes, life giver and the keeper of life. Yes, royal family, give thanks for love, give thanks for light, give thanks for happiness and give thanks for joy, you know. Definitely thanks for your presence with us. Life giver and the keeper of life. Holy Emmanuel, I, Selassie, I, Jah, Rastafari, yeah, man. Blessed Lord. From the dawn of humanity, the universe has provided for man and woman a plant of renown, the tree of life, the healing of the nation, cannabis sativa. From ganja pollen found in the tomb of Ramesses II, to hemp fiber in the temple of Akhenaten, Confucius' canon of rites, the Rig Veda, and the writings of Zoroaster label cannabis as a sacred plant. Marijuana, Mafaizan, in the Orient, it is the spiritual plant of Rastafari. The sacred mint, our sacrament. It's the Winter Solstice Extravaganza, a festival unlike any other in the world. Join us for 5 days and 5 nights in the Caribbean island of Antigua. Experience our beaches, our historic island tour, splendid accommodations, and our plant-based meals. And of course, the sunrise and the sunset hike to the Stonehenge of the Caribbean, Green Castle Hill, Mount Anu, amongst the megaliths that align with the stars. Reserve your spot today and join us from Wednesday the 18th to Sunday the 22nd of December 2024 for the Winter Solstice Extravaganza. Visit our website, priestisaacinstitute.com, or email us priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com.